The tracking dog abruptly halted at the forest's boundary, his fur bristling and a low growl emanating from his chest. "Shadow, what is it?" Sergeant Morgan inquired, securing her hold on the leash. Shortly after, they located the old house situated deep within the woods, a place where no house ought to exist, but what they found inside instilled a chilling dread. What precisely did they unearth in that neglected location? Please subscribe and leave a comment below, letting us know your location. Let's get started. Kate Morgan was loading equipment into her department SUV as dawn approached. She watched with concern as Shadow, her Belgian Malinois partner, paced anxiously beside the vehicle. Usually the dog would wait calmly during preparations, but today his strong body stayed rigid, shifting between gentle movements and focused looks at the nearby forest. At 34, Sergeant Morgan had become Pinewood County's leading search expert. Shadow, possessing his advanced certification and abilities in tracking and cadaver detection, had made them the department's preferred team for missing persons cases. The call had arrived after midnight. Jason Reeves, age 27, was missing after failing to return from his day hike on Blackwater Ridge Trail. The first search team found no sign of him in the darkness. Sheriff Donovan arrived with the rest of the team, his face showing worry. "Morning, Kate. The weather report indicates rain by afternoon. We have roughly 6 hours before conditions worsen." Kate nodded, making sure her equipment was secure. "We'll find him." Donovan observed the dog's agitated state. "What's got Shadow so worked up?" he asked. "I'm not sure," she replied. "He has been like this since they arrived." She scratched behind Shadow's ears. "Focus up, partner." But as the team gathered for briefing, Kate couldn't shake the feeling that Shadow's agitation wasn't merely pre-search excitement. In their 3 years together, she learned to read his signals, and this behavior felt different, almost like a warning. Blackwater Ridge stretched across the northeastern corner of Pinewood County like a jagged spine, dense forests climbing into mist-shrouded peaks. The search team gathered at the trailhead, where Jason Reeves's blue Subaru was parked. Kate swiftly organized the team while unloading Shadow. Deputy Torres and Chun would take the South Fork. Harrison and Lopez were to check the ravine. The sheriff and I would follow Shadow on the main trail. Kate presented Shadow with Jason's navy fleece from a sealed bag. The Malinois inhaled deeply, transitioning to work mode, though Kate observed the remaining tension in his posture. She firmly instructed, securing his tracking lead. After 20 minutes near a small footbridge, Shadow abruptly halted, his body becoming rigid as he analyzed the air instead of the ground. "What's he onto?" Donovan inquired. Rather than proceeding across the bridge, Shadow abruptly turned to the right, drawing Kate towards an embankment. 50 yards away was a forest green backpack, swiftly recognized as Jason's, containing his wallet and phone. The trail continued in that direction. Donovan indicated along the creek bed, where crushed plants indicated recent activity. Shadow hesitated to proceed, stubbornly pulling toward the apparently untouched forest. "Shadow, find," Kate repeated, attempting to guide him. The Malinois emitted a whine, pulling with unusual force, a behavior Kate had never observed during a search. "Your dog seems disoriented," Deputy Torres commented. "The path is clearly alongside the water." Kate observed Shadow's concentrated gaze. "I'm going with Shadow." A sense of unease settled over him regarding the creek trail. "We should split up," Torres proposed. "No," Kate stated decisively. "If someone is intentionally leading us astray, separating could create a risk." She addressed Donovan. "Sheriff, I request your confidence. 3 years with Shadow indicate we must follow his guidance." Donovan acknowledged. "We will follow the dog." "Torres, please note this location and communicate with the other teams. We will keep in touch via radio." Shadow took the lead as Kate and Donovan advanced further into the forest, moving away from marked trails and into a wilderness seldom visited by recreational hikers. The ground became more challenging the farther they strayed from known paths. Thick pine and old fir trees formed a natural maze, their large trunks limiting visibility to less than 20 yards. "We're traveling northwest now," Donovan observed, consulting his GPS. "There are no recorded trails in this area. This was old-growth forest untouched by logging." After 30 minutes of consistent hiking, Shadow halted at the foot of a sharp ridge, his ears twitching as he analyzed the scents carried on the breeze. Suddenly, he bolted forward with such momentum that Kate briefly stumbled. "Shadow, easy," she called, reasserting control of the lead. The dog had stopped at a seemingly neglected path, running across the ridge face. "Service road," Donovan stated, bending down to inspect the packed soil hidden by the plants. "An old one, not listed on any maps we have now." As they proceeded down the neglected service road, Kate experienced a rising sense of disquiet. The woods appeared to press in on them, the overhead branches becoming denser until only infrequent beams of light reached the ground. "This section was harvested in the 1920s, Donovan clarified, ending the quiet. Company archives document a minor worker settlement, consisting of impermanent buildings intended to be vacated upon the end of operations. Shadow guided them around a pronounced curve in the aged road and abruptly halted, his posture tense with focus. Kate tracked his line of sight and felt her breathing shorten. Situated within a compact clearing was a two-story house, its time-worn, clapboard facade darkened by age and moisture. Rather than the crumbling ruin one could anticipate following a century of abandonment, the structure seemed mostly complete, with some sagging areas, dark and empty windows, but fundamentally stable. "That's not a logging camp shack," Kate stated softly. "No," Donovan concurred, his hand moving naturally to his sidearm. "That's someone's homestead, and it shouldn't be here." The house stood before them, its aged exterior showing the marks of many seasons. As she approached, Kate observed details previously hidden from afar. Intricate Victorian-style trim around the eaves, though much of it was decayed, and vestiges of what had undoubtedly been a graceful wraparound porch, now partially collapsed at one corner. "Sheriff's Department," she announced. "We are conducting a search for a missing hiker. Anyone inside, please identify yourself." Only silence responded. The forest sounds appeared subdued around the property, fostering an unsettling quiet that prickled the skin on Kate's arms. "I'm seeing recent footprints," Donovan observed, indicating clear marks in the yielding ground close to the porch steps. "Multiple sets, some arriving, some departing." Kate bent down to study a well-defined print. "This matches the tread pattern from Jason's hiking boots, based on the girlfriend's description. He was certainly here." Adhering to the established procedures for entering potentially occupied buildings during search operations, Donovan drew his service weapon, maintaining a safe downward-pointing position. He repeated, "Sheriff's Department. We are entering to search the premises." The front door emitted a concerning creak as Donovan pushed it open. The interior was dimly lit, the scant daylight that penetrated through the cloudy, undamaged windows illuminated a foyer characterized by peeling wallpaper and a dust-covered wooden floor. Remarkably, the furniture was still present. A discolored mirror leaned askew on one wall, and a former elegant side table sat beneath it, its surface covered in debris. The air inside was chilly and damp, carrying the stale odor of prolonged desertion combined with something else, something less definable, something more recent. Shadow moved carefully into the foyer, his nose working constantly, head turning to register each room extending from the central space. Deviating from his typical approach, he appeared hesitant to move forward, remaining uncommonly near Kate. "Living room clear," Donovan stated, inspecting the initial doorway on their right. The connected dining room and kitchen also displayed indications of emptiness, although nothing presented an immediate cause for worry, simply decades of dust, dislodged plaster, and the minor remnants left by wildlife seeking refuge. Kate noticed someone had been present, observing the kitchen table's relatively clean spots where dust had been recently moved, and noting an empty modern water bottle in one corner. Their attention then shifted to a door located beneath the main staircase, which is when Shadow's demeanor changed significantly. The Malinois halted suddenly, his body becoming rigid as he focused on the closed door. A low growl emanated from his throat. "Basement access," Donovan stated softly. Kate observed a detail overlooked during their first search. Tiny symbols were etched into the door frame, abstract designs that seemed intentional, not mere random damage. Comparable markings were present on the floor at the threshold, subtle lines scratched into the aged wood. "These are new," she stated, bending down to inspect them, and they're all around the door, almost as if, like a boundary or a warning, Donovan concluded. Shadow's growl intensified, his gaze firmly fixed on the basement door. Throughout 3 years of searches, building clearances, and tracking operations, Kate had never witnessed her partner exhibit such intense apprehension. Kate encountered Shadow during a difficult period in her career. Following 8 years in military police, including 2 deployments to Afghanistan, she joined the Pinewood County Sheriff's Department, anticipating a less demanding role. Her initial 2 years of service concluded with a tragic, unsuccessful attempt to locate a 4-year-old who had strayed from a campsite. The child's remains were discovered several days later, just half a mile from an area that had already been searched. This experience significantly damaged her self-assurance. Sheriff Donovan encouraged her to focus on growth instead of withdrawing, and he offered her a K-9 unit application. During training, she encountered a lean Belgian Malinois. The dog's evaluation noted high intelligence but difficulty in management, along with exceptional search aptitude and inconsistent responses to commands. The trainer stated that Shadow's intensity made him unsuitable for most handlers. Rescued from abuse at 10 months of age, the previous owner had employed harsh training techniques, essentially torture. Their partnership started with challenges. A significant turning point occurred during a night exercise when Kate fell and sustained a head injury. Instead of returning to base as instructed, Shadow remained with her throughout the night, subsequently leading her along the simplest route back, accommodating her uneven steps. Now, gazing at the basement door with its unusual markings, Kate remembered Fletcher's advice about heeding a dog's instincts even when the reason wasn't clear. Shadow wasn't simply providing an alert, he was conveying a particular message regarding what lay beyond that entrance. "I'm going to trust my partner," she told Donovan, placing her hand reassuringly on Shadow's back. "If he thinks there's something important down there, we need to find out what it is." The basement door resisted initially, then yielded with a groan of protesting hinges. Stale air surged upward, carrying the distinct mineral scent of underground spaces mixed with something less identifiable, a sharp, almost metallic undertone that made Kate's nose wrinkle. Donovan observed a temperature drop as noticeably colder air surrounded them. "Feels like 15 degrees cooler down there," he remarked. A narrow, wooden staircase led down into darkness. Kate turned on her tactical flashlight, the beam illuminating a dirt floor roughly 8 feet below. Shadow remained alert, but didn't show any eagerness to descend. This was unusual for a dog typically keen to lead the way during searches. The basement proved more expansive than Kate anticipated, stretching under the complete area of the house. Stone foundation walls upheld the structure above, with hand-hewn wooden pillars offering extra support at consistent intervals. In contrast to the comparatively undisturbed upper floor, the basement displayed indications of more recent use. "Someone has been using this space," Kate noted, aiming her light beam toward a contemporary camping lantern positioned on a weathered wooden crate. Close by, a sleeping bag was carefully rolled beside a small backpack. "Search team, this is Donovan," the sheriff spoke into his radio. "We've located possible belongings of the missing hiker in an abandoned structure. Request additional units at our GPS coordinates." Only Static answered him. They systematically documented the scene, photographing the items with their phones. The backpack contained energy bars, a first aid kit, and a well-worn trail map of Blackwater Ridge with handwritten annotations. A notebook close at hand contained puzzling notes. The last one was dated the day Jason vanished. "Returning inside today, assuming the stories about this location are accurate, I should possess evidence that cannot be questioned." Shadow, who had been examining the room's boundaries while staying near Kate, abruptly tensed, his focus fixed on the distant wall. Kate instantly understood his stance, the identical alert posture he adopted when locating concealed objects during evidence searches. Shadow informed Donovan, who had been studying markings on a support pillar. The wall that had attracted Shadow's attention seemed unremarkable initially, consisting of roughly hewn stone blocks. However, as Kate drew nearer, her flashlight illuminated slight variations in the mortar arrangement approximately halfway along its length. Working together, they scrutinized the wall section meticulously, ultimately finding a skillfully hidden device, a jutting stone that, when pushed in, disengaged a latch. Accompanied by a soft scraping noise, a portion of the wall, roughly 3 feet in width, swung inward, exposing a narrow passage on the other side. This passage led to a circular room, approximately 15 feet in diameter, with a floor of fitted stone slabs. The walls displayed faded inscriptions, unknown script, and elaborate geometric designs. A stone table, appearing like an altar and bearing a dark stain, was positioned in the center. 7 candles formed a perfect circle around it, 3 of which had recently been lit, showing soft wax. The items placed on the altar were particularly unsettling: a driver's license, watch, and cell phone Kate recognized from the missing person report. These were Jason's belongings, and she documented them with photographs, careful not to move anything. The question remained, where was he? Shadow's anxiety became apparent as he moved around the room. He moved toward the altar, then retreated, conflicted by his investigative training and an intense feeling of reluctance. Kate's flashlight wavered, then noticeably weakened. Donovan's did the same. A subtle hum resonated from the walls, intensifying until Kate felt it vibrating within her. The temperature dropped sharply, their exhaled breath appearing as frosty vapor. Shadow's actions changed significantly. He settled against Kate's legs, forming a protective posture, his gaze directed at an empty corner, his fur bristling. Rather than his usual forceful barking when facing danger, he remained quietly watchful. "We must leave," Kate stated, relying on Shadow's judgment. Immediately, as they moved back, Kate's weakening light revealed one last detail: a recently inscribed name etched into the altar's edge. Beneath those others faded with time: Jason Reeves. Upon exiting the concealed room, Donovan attempted to use his radio, but it only produced the same peculiar static. Kate examined her phone. There was no signal, and the battery had dropped from 85% to 17% during their short time in the basement. A gentle thud from the level above halted them at the foot of the staircase, followed by the clear sound of footsteps on aging, creaking floorboards. "Someone's up there," Kate murmured, drawing her sidearm. The missing hiker could be this person. The main floor seemed unoccupied as they carefully exited the basement. Daylight had faded considerably. Checking her watch, she realized they had been inside for fewer than 40 minutes, but the light suggested late afternoon, not midday. Shadow suddenly became alert, his focus drawn to a small secretary desk in the corner that they hadn't previously inspected closely. The roll top of the desk had been opened, showing a stack of leather-bound journals almost neatly arranged inside. The topmost volume lay open, its pages filled with handwritten text that seemed surprisingly new compared to the old paper. Kate studied the open page, feeling a sudden chill unrelated to the basement's dampness. The writing detailed names and dates of people who've disappeared in these woods. The journal entries originated in 1893 and were written at inconsistent intervals throughout the years. Certain names were accompanied by supplemental information, including ages, occupations, and details regarding disappearances. Kate identified several entries referencing unsolved missing persons cases she had become familiar with after joining the department. Particularly unsettling was the last entry, concerning Jason Reeves, which bore yesterday's date and a specific time. 3:17 p.m. Shadow abruptly growled, turning to confront the doorway. Moments passed, then a significant crash echoed from the upper floor, indicating furniture was being knocked over or displaced. "Sheriff's Department," Donovan announced, approaching the foot of the central staircase. "Identify yourself immediately." Only silence responded, accompanied by another crash, this time directly above them. Plaster dust drifted down from the ceiling. The staircase creaked under their cautious ascent, weapons drawn. The upper hallway split into 4 rooms, the doors showing different levels of damage. Shadow guided them toward the closest entrance, his carefulness apparent in each measured step. The bedroom inside looked untouched initially, featuring a 4-poster bed with a decaying mattress, a wardrobe against one wall, and faded curtains still present at the windows. Then Kate observed the wardrobe doors gradually opening, despite the absence of any breeze or disruption that might cause the movement. Deputy Chen's voice abruptly broke through their radios, startling them both. "Sheriff, come in." We've been trying to reach you for over an hour. Donovan pressed his transmit button. Chun, we're inside a structure approximately 2 miles northwest of the backpack location. Possible evidence of the missing hiker found. Sir, we can barely read you. Signals breaking up. Do you need assistance? Affirmative. Track our GPS coordinates. Approach with caution. Kate went to the window, hoping to spot the approaching search team from afar. However, she stopped, stunned by the scene before her. The area around the house appeared altered. The forest seemed nearer, thicker, the trees leaning inward, as if the woods had somehow moved closer while they were inside. A floorboard groaned behind them, though neither had shifted. Shadow turned toward the noise, positioning himself between Kate and the vacant corner of the room. The temperature plummeted rapidly, their breath visible in the suddenly frigid air. As if to emphasize her statement, a door slammed somewhere down the hallway. Then another. The sound of footsteps, numbering more than one person could manage, reverberated from several directions at once. We retreated the way we had come, Donovan decided, moving toward the bedroom door, only to discover it was closed, despite neither of them having touched it. Kate grasped the doorknob, finding it intensely cold. The door rotated without obstruction, yet remained unyielding, as if a significant force held it back from the hallway. Donovan proposed examining the window, and immediately moved towards it. The old frame initially resisted his attempt to lift the sash, but then yielded with a scattering of paint chips and debris. A blast of cold rain rushed in, bringing with it the fragrance of damp soil and pine. Shadow's growl intensified, his attention still directed towards the apparently vacant corner of the room. Kate had grown accustomed to relying on her partner's instincts, especially when they sensed threats she couldn't identify. Whatever was in that corner registered as dangerous to the Malinois. Kate secured her sidearm and proceeded cautiously as a forceful impact rattled the bedroom door. The old wood fractured but remained intact. A second impact splintered the frame along one side. The fall to the ground outside was roughly 12 feet, negotiable but potentially hazardous. Kate descended from the sill, using her hands to lower herself and minimize the drop to the muddy earth below. She landed unevenly but sustained no injuries, quickly arranging herself to be in shadow. Donovan raised the Malinois, who appeared remarkably compliant with the handling, reinforcing Kate's sense that the dog detected significant danger within. Shadow permitted himself to be passed through the window, his 65 pounds of muscle momentarily suspended before Donovan released him to Kate below. Another crash originated from inside the bedroom, followed by Donovan's startled shout. Kate looked up to observe the sheriff struggling with the window sash, which had unexpectedly slammed down, nearly trapping his hands. "Something's got it," he called, straining against the seemingly immovable window. Shadow barked sharply, not an alert for danger, but his specific call for Kate's attention. The Malinois was focused on a point at the corner of the house, where weathered clapboards met in a seam that appeared to be separating unnaturally, revealing darkness beyond. "Sheriff, another exit," Kate called up to Donovan. "Meet me at the front of the house." Kate drew her weapon again, using her flashlight to illuminate the darkened passage beyond the open doors. Rough-hewn stone steps descended into darkness. The air rising from below held the same metallic odor they'd noticed in the basement. Shadow seemed to want her to go down, but everything she's felt in the house cautioned against returning. The dog whimpered, scratching at the initial step, his eagerness unmistakable. "Kate," Donovan's voice called from somewhere near the front of the house. "Where are you?" Before she could respond, a loud crash echoed from inside the house, the clear sound of a structural failure. Dust puffed out from an upstairs window as a portion of the roof collapsed. Shadow's fur stood on end, a soft growl vibrating in his chest, aimed not at the cellar entrance behind them, but toward the sound of Donovan's voice. A chilling sense of conviction settled in Kate's stomach. "That's not the sheriff," she whispered, completely believing Shadow's judgment. The dog maintained its position, preventing anyone or anything from approaching from around the corner. Kate retreated towards the cellar entrance, keeping her weapon aimed at the side of the building. Shadow followed her, continuing his protective posture. The constricted tunnel stretched roughly 20 feet before leading into what seemed to be a mechanical room, containing antiquated, rusted machinery indicative of a coal furnace system from the house's initial construction. This area, in contrast to the basement they had explored previously, exhibited no indications of recent activity. A door on the distant wall likely linked to the main basement. Kate bypassed it, opting to follow Shadow toward a section of foundation wall that had partially collapsed. The Malinois readily passed through the opening, appearing outside into thick underbrush that had hidden this gap from view. "Sheriff Donovan, come in." Kate tried on her radio, but only received static. She trailed Shadow roughly 50 yards through thick foliage before daring to look back towards the house. Through openings in the trees, she observed its outline. The partially collapsed roof was now releasing smoke despite the heavy rain. Even more unsettling was the movement she noticed at several windows, with shadows moving across them, despite the fact that they had discovered no other people inside. Kate, the authentic voice of Sheriff Donovan, interrupted her focus on the house. He appeared from the trees to her right, soaked and muddied, but seemingly unharmed. "Thank God, I thought you were still inside." Shadow's reaction verified this was truly Donovan. The dog's posture softened, his tail giving a quick wag of recognition. "How did you escape?" Kate inquired, observing a bleeding cut along the sheriff's hairline. "The back staircase gave way while he was on it," he recounted, resulting in him ending up in some kind of root cellar. He found a storm door leading out, and then he paused, seemingly having difficulty expressing his experience. Something was present with him inside, not a person, at least not anymore. Shadow abruptly tensed, his focus returning to the house in the distance. Kate followed his gaze, observing what seemed to be several figures exiting the front door. They were obscured by the rain and fading light, but clearly advancing purposefully toward their position. "We need to go," she stated, her strategic mind rapidly assessing their choices. The primary objective was to extract safely and redirect backup teams away from the house. After 20 minutes of consistent travel, they arrived at the ridge line, offering a view of the valley where the house was situated. From their high vantage point, they observed several flashlight beams in the distance, indicating the search teams were closing in, following their last known coordinates. "We need to stop them before they reach the house," Donovan stated, attempting his radio once more. This time, Deputy Torres responded clearly. "Sheriff, we've been trying to reach you for hours." "Listen carefully," Donovan replied. "Do not approach the structure at these coordinates. I repeat, do not approach. We are maneuvering to block your team's advance from the ridge line north of your current location." Within an hour, they had successfully met up with the search teams and created a security zone half a mile from the house. As full darkness enveloped the forest, the decision was reached to pause operations until morning. The missing hiker, Jason Reeves, was still not found. A flickering light appeared through the trees, not a consistent beam from a flashlight, but the shifting appearance of flames. The house, despite the pouring rain, was now completely consumed by fire, the glow still visible from their location. 1 month later, Kate's office wall showcased an expanding array of photographs, maps, and notes linked by red string, representing her personal inquiry. Jason Reeves remained listed as missing with no new information. The formal search continued for 2 weeks, involving numerous agencies, cadaver dogs, and ground-penetrating radar covering 10 square miles. The search yielded no results, no body was discovered, nor any further evidence besides the peculiar house that had burned completely to its foundation before firefighters arrived. Kate attached a newspaper clipping from 1922 to her board, detailing the destruction of Old Blackwater House in a fire that claimed the lives of 7 members of the Thorne family. The article mentioned local beliefs that the property had been plagued by misfortune since it was built. Her phone rang. "Morgan, this is Torres. Regarding the research you asked for, 16 disappearances have been recorded within a 5-mile radius of Blackwater Ridge, a number 3 times higher than what's typically seen in comparable wilderness areas. Any patterns?" Kate inquired. "The disappearances tend to occur in clusters of 3 or 4 individuals within a few months, followed by years of no further incidents. Has anyone ever been located?" "Only one person. A Forest Service worker was discovered wandering along Highway 16 3 months later in 1978. He had no recollection of his whereabouts and was malnourished, but sustained no other injuries. Following the phone call, Kate added the details to her board while Shadow stood beside her, his gaze fixed on the photograph of the house foundation. "What did you perceive there?" she inquired softly. Shadow immediately growled, his focus directed at the window where darkness now filled the view. Kate observed a fleeting movement in the tree line, the shadows seeming distorted. She swiftly lowered the blinds, spotting a manila envelope on the exterior windowsill, a package that couldn't be reached without a ladder from her second-floor office. A single photograph lay within, showing Jason Reeves positioned in front of the undamaged Blackwater house, his expression unreadable, bearing a timestamp 3 days following their investigation. Written on the reverse in elegant handwriting was the phrase, "The house always returns. So do we." Shadow brushed against her legs as a shiver traced its way down her spine. Outside, limbs scraped against the structure, sounding like searching fingers. For the first time in her professional life, Kate wished that certain enigmas would remain beyond resolution. Have you ever observed your pet responding to something imperceptible that prompted a feeling of unease? Animals demonstrate senses extending beyond human capabilities. They perceive frequencies beyond our hearing range, scent traces too subtle for us to notice, and possibly energies that science has yet to explain. What could your dog or cat be perceiving when they abruptly pause, focusing intensely on a vacant area of your home? Do you consider that some locations retain echoes of previous occurrences that certain perceptive animals are able to detect? Please share your thoughts and experiences in the comments section. We are eager to read your stories. If this puzzling cold case gave you chills, remember to click the subscribe button and enable notifications to stay updated with our regular uploads about remarkable dog stories. Give this video a thumbs up if you want to see more unsolved mysteries, and share it with those who value the unique capabilities of our canine friends. Be sure to view our additional unexplained canine encounters currently displaying. We'll see you tomorrow, same time, with another brand new video that explores the remarkable world of working dogs and the mysteries they help us uncover. The police dog halted abruptly in the dark alley, refusing to proceed. His handler had never observed him behaving in this manner, but when backup arrived and revealed the truth, every officer was left shaken. Here's what transpired. Now, before we delve into today's story, please leave a comment below indicating where in the world you're watching from. And if you enjoy remarkable police dog stories like this one, be sure to click that subscribe button. You won't want to miss what's coming next. A gentle rain fell across Portland's Northwest District, covering the cobblestone streets in a glistening sheen that reflected the faint light of century-old street lamps. Officer Michael Reeves tugged at the collar of his police raincoat, the department patch on his shoulder dampened by the continuous drizzle. Alongside him, Axel, his 4-year partner and German Shepherd K9 officer, moved quietly through the night, his black and tan coat appearing unaffected by the weather. "Quiet night, huh, buddy?" Michael said, observing as Axel's ears twitched, continuously registering the urban soundscape of faraway traffic, the infrequent late-night pedestrian, and the rustle of rain against brick walls. 8 years on the force had shown Michael that beauty frequently masked danger, particularly in the twisting alleys located between Portland's celebrated buildings. Axel proceeded with military precision, each step calculated yet smooth, his training apparent in every motion. The shepherd's amber eyes surveyed their surroundings with a keen intelligence that occasionally made Michael question just how much his partner truly understood. K9-5, this is dispatch. We've got reports of suspicious activity near Westmore and Caldwell. The caller mentioned unusual noises from the historic district, possibly from behind the old Harrington building. Michael activated his radio. Dispatch, K9-5 responding. We are 2 blocks away. We will investigate. Probably just the usual, Michael said to Axel, his voice low. Someone taking shelter from the rain. Maybe some teenagers thinking they found a good spot to hang out. Portland's historic district was full of recessed doorways and forgotten maintenance alleys that regularly attracted both the homeless and thrill-seeking youths. As they neared the Harrington building, a restored brick structure dating back to the 1890s, Michael directed his flashlight beam across the building's exterior. Let's check the back, he proposed, turning towards the service alley located behind the row of historic buildings. At that moment, everything shifted. Axel's demeanor instantly changed. The easy, assured walk disappeared, superseded by tense readiness. His ears moved forward, his tail became straight, and every muscle in his strong body tightened noticeably under his damp fur. Michael had observed his partner signaling the presence of suspects, drugs, and weapons before, but this felt unusual. There was no sign of eagerness or the expectation that usually came with a positive discovery. "What is it, boy?" Michael asked, quickly checking their surroundings for danger. Axel made no barking or whining sounds. He remained focused on the alley entrance, a quiet growl vibrating in his chest. The shepherd's actions caused a wave of unease to ripple through Michael, unrelated to the rain wetting his collar. "Dispatch K9-5. Michael spoke into his radio, the tightness in his voice evident. "We're at the alley off Westmore, behind the Harrington building. Something feels amiss. Axel is displaying atypical behavior, requesting another unit to help investigate the situation." The usually reliable dog took a cautious step backward, leaning against Michael's leg, a behavior he'd never displayed previously. In 4 years of confronting armed suspects, entering burning buildings, and traversing disaster scenes, Michael had never witnessed his partner show fear. The alley extended before them, resembling a tight canyon, bordered by the imposing brick walls of buildings erected in a different century. Metal fire escapes angled downwards along the building's walls, their stairs reflecting the faint light with a wet sheen. Michael's flashlight appeared to be absorbed by the surrounding darkness, failing to cut through it. "Axel, move forward," Michael ordered, his voice steady despite his rising apprehension. For the initial time in their collaboration, Axel paused before responding to a direct instruction. The shepherd advanced 2 hesitant steps into the alley, then halted abruptly, exhibiting not the watchful readiness of a dog sensing drugs or bombs, nor the defensive posture of one confronting danger. This was a wholly different reaction. Axel remained still, his form tense, his gaze fixed on something in the distance that Michael couldn't perceive. Michael recalled their training sessions at the academy. The instructor's words resonated in his thoughts. Dogs possess an ability to perceive not only what exists but also what is amiss, demonstrating a perceptive capacity that surpasses human comprehension. Should your K9 partner display behavior you have not previously observed, be vigilant. It could potentially save your life. Dispatch requesting immediate backup at my location. K9 is exhibiting unprecedented behavior. Something's very wrong here. Copy that. K95. Units 12 and 17 are responding. ETA 4 minutes. The sound of boots impacting puddles signaled the arrival of backup. Raindrops clung to officers Layla Torres and Keith Mercer as they stepped forward, their tactical flashlights illuminating the gloom. "What's the situation, Reeves?" Torres inquired, her hand naturally positioned on her holstered weapon as she surveyed the alley. "It's Axel," Michael responded, indicating his motionless partner. "We were answering the suspicious activity report when he simply halted. He won't advance, he won't go back. I've never witnessed him behaving this way." Mercer's eyebrows lifted in disbelief. "We hurried here because your dog became startled? Could have been anything, another animal, an unusual odor. It's impossible to say." "That's the point," Michael stated directly. "Axel doesn't become startled. Not by animals, not by suspects, not by anything we've seen before. This is unlike anything we've experienced." The officers systematically searched the accessible area of the alley, checking behind dumpsters and inspecting doorways. "Nothing apparent," Torres said after a few minutes. There were no indications of forced entry, no people present, and no apparent dangers. Almost immediately after, Axel emitted a quiet whine, a sound so unusual that the 3 officers became alert. The shepherd subtly changed his position, still hesitant to move forward, but now actively opposing Michael's mild attempts to guide him back to the road. "We ought to report this as a false alarm," Mercer proposed, but he seemed unsure. "Perhaps we should have Axel examined." Michael remained steadfast. "We need to investigate further. Axel is never incorrect. merely sometimes anticipating what we comprehend. Could we have thermal imaging deployed here? The thermal imaging unit was received by Officer Dawson, the department's technology specialist. Rain fell on the equipment's protective case as he meticulously assembled it near their patrol vehicles. "You're fortunate I was already in the field," Dawson stated, while calibrating the device. "What precisely are we searching for?" "Anything unusual?" Michael asked, looking back at Axel, who stayed in the same motionless state. He listed possibilities: people concealing themselves, surprising heat signatures, structural irregularities, anything that could account for Axel's reaction. Dawson agreed, lifting the thermal viewer to survey the alley. "That's strange," he said softly, modifying the device's settings. "I'm detecting cold areas alternating with warm areas further into the alley, which isn't typical heat distribution." The three officers proceeded cautiously, with Dawson consistently observing the thermal imaging device. Approximately 60 feet into the alley, the scanner detected a notable temperature difference close to the ground. At that point, Dawson indicated a section of wall partly hidden by a dumpster. He noted that area displayed an unusual thermal pattern, showing cold spots that were unexpected. Michael then shone his flashlight to the spot Dawson had shown. Initially, it seemed like a standard section of the building's foundation. However, a more careful look showed slight variations. The bricks didn't align with the primary wall's design, and a narrow line indicated what seemed to be a maintenance entrance. "That's not documented in any of the building plans I've reviewed," Mercer stated, shifting the dumpster to gain a clearer perspective. "And look at this." The beam of his flashlight revealed new scuff marks on the ground, indicating the recent movement of the large dumpster. The maintenance door's lock displayed indications of being forced, and the settled dust had been disrupted. Michael noticed something additional. A small symbol was etched into the metal frame of the door. It wasn't graffiti, but rather a carefully and deliberately created design. A circle encompassed a stylized eye with emanating lines. "We need to document this," he stated, taking photos with his department-issued phone, "and to call in additional units. Dispatch, we've located a concealed entrance showing signs of recent activity, requesting Detective Division and additional backup for further investigation. Copy that, Unit 17. Detective Division notified. Be advised, Detective Wright is responding personally." Detective Marcus Wright arrived 20 minutes later, his weathered face serious beneath the brim of a rain-speckled fedora. Wright, at the age of 53, held legendary status within the department. His 25 years of experience had fostered a nearly uncanny knack for linking seemingly unrelated pieces of evidence. "I've witnessed this previously," Wright stated softly, gesturing above the carving without making contact. "3 cases within the past year, all related to trafficking activities. These are highly developed operations. The warrants have been approved. We are proceeding with complete tactical authorization. Drawing on patterns from comparable operations, this entrance probably connects to a tunnel system situated under the historic district. Several of these buildings originate from the 1890s, and the subterranean network was substantial, largely lost to memory until criminals located it again. The maintenance door gave way to specialized entry tools, exposing a confined stairwell leading downwards into darkness. A stale odor of aged brick and motionless air rose from below. Wright instructed Reeves, "Your partner remains here with Torres." Given his reaction, he added, "I don't want to risk." He was interrupted by Axel's sudden movement. After almost an hour of complete immobility, the shepherd padded forward, pausing at the entrance to the stairwell. His earlier fear appeared transformed into determined purpose. "I believe he wants to lead," Michael said, surprised by the change. Wright considered this. "Your call, officer. You know your partner best." The initial descent was spearheaded by Axel, with Michael, Wright, and 4 other officers following. Their flashlights revealed a passage that had undergone recent renovations. The original brick walls were reinforced with contemporary metal supports, and electrical conduit was installed along the ceiling, while the floor had been cleared of any obstructions. "Someone has invested resources here," Wright noted. "These aren't just casual trespassers." The passage stretched approximately 100 yards before widening into a more spacious area displaying evidence of recent use. Sleeping bags were carefully arranged against one wall. A portable generator remained still in the corner. Particularly unsettling were the restraints secured to another wall, several sets designed to accommodate various wrist sizes. Axel proceeded deliberately around the chamber, his nose working continuously, then centered his attention on a metal footlocker located beneath a temporary table. Michael carefully opened the container, revealing dozens of passports, ID cards, and personal effects. He reported, leafing through the documents, that they bore different names and nationalities, but the individuals appeared to be of similar ages, mostly late teens and early 20s. Wright examined a detailed map pinned to the wall. "Look at this," he said. It displayed the entire tunnel network with connections to at least 6 buildings above. They were utilizing the old bootlegger routes from Prohibition, supplemented by some newer additions. Axel stiffened again, turning toward one of the 3 tunnel entrances extending from the main chamber. This was a posture of readiness, unlike his previous stillness, that Michael recognized. The dog had identified something particular. "He's detected something," Michael told the others, drawing his weapon. "Fresh scent, I'm guessing." "Which tunnel?" Wright asked, moving to stand beside him. "The eastern one," Michael replied, referencing his position. Wright checked the map. "That leads toward the river. Approximately 200 yards ahead lies a significant intersection, branching into several paths." The detective swiftly decided, "We have sufficient resources for a complete operational deployment. I'm requesting tactical teams to secure the alternative access points." He pointed out several locations on the map. "Are we proceeding?" Michael inquired, observing Axel's growing anticipation. Wright nodded gravely. "Your partner reports the presence of something or someone newly arrived in that tunnel. Whether they were victims or suspects, action was necessary, and they weren't delaying." Axel guided them further into the tunnel system. His previous uncertainty vanished. The tunnel then led to a more expansive, roughly circular chamber, with 5 passages extending outwards, resembling spokes on a wheel. "We are directly under the Westmoreland building," Wright stated, checking a compact GPS device. The former bank, dating back to the 1920s and now converted into luxury apartments, provided a perfect cover. Residents were constantly coming and going at all hours, and no one questioned deliveries or service visits. Axel circled the chamber, his nose working overtime, before settling precisely between 2 of the outgoing tunnels. This alert posture indicated he had found what he was searching for, but could not pinpoint a specific location. Both passages Michael interpreted with the sense originating from both directions. Wright divided their small team. "Mercer, you and Jefferson proceed along the right passage with Reeves and Axel. Henderson and I will take the left, maintain radio contact every 2 minutes, and initiate an immediate call if you discover anything." The passage gradually widened again, indicating signs of more extensive renovation. After approximately 100 yards, they arrived at another chamber, this one clearly designed for human occupation. This room differed from the initial one they found. It had been transformed into a regulated environment. Sections separated by lockable doors ran along one wall. A complex computer system was situated on another. Filing cabinets, a medical examination table, and recording devices finished the unsettling display. "Jesus," Mercer said, observing the scene. "What the heck is this place?" Michael remained silent, observing as Axel carefully examined the room, indicating particular cabinets and locations. Following his partner's direction, Michael located several passports and identification papers, each bearing different names but featuring identical photographs. Even more unsettling were the medical records, containing detailed examinations, blood analysis, and psychological evaluations. "They're manipulating people here," Michael stated at last, the weight of realization dawning on him. "Assessing them, establishing new identities, and readying them for the future." Jefferson had opened one of the file cabinets. "Sir, you need to see this." The drawer held numerous folders, each marked with a name, date, and destination code. Affixed to each file was a photograph of a young person, most appearing frightened, disoriented, or unnaturally sedated. "This isn't just trafficking," Wright stated from the doorway, having rejoined them after exploring the other passage. This was a complex operation. He displayed a leather-bound journal. Financial records were discovered in the other chamber, revealing millions of dollars in transactions. Axel persisted in his careful examination of the chamber, finally settling in front of a metal door located at the far end of the room. Another guarded location. This door differed from those previously found. It was heavier, secured with a modern electronic lock instead of a traditional deadbolt. "There are people behind that door," Michael said, moving to join his partner. Wright examined the lock system. "High-end security. They're keeping something valuable in there." "Or someone," Mercer added. The detective pulled a specialized electronic bypass tool from his tactical vest. "Standard override should work. Everyone ready? We don't know what's on the other side." Weapons drawn, the officers positioned themselves as Wright bypassed the security system. With a pneumatic hiss, the substantial door swung open, presenting a striking difference from the functional areas seen before. The room beyond enjoyed climate control and featured costly leather sofas, antique rugs, and modern artwork. A bar was situated in one corner, filled with high-end spirits. A large window seemed to dominate one wall, although the area visible through it was presently unlit. Wright approached a control panel located close to the viewing window. It wasn't a club, it was an auction house. He activated a button, revealing the space beyond the glass. The connected room held a small stage, encircled by theater-style seating accommodating roughly 20 people. Multiple camera angles were covered by mounted cameras, and a podium was positioned at the stage's center. "They're selling them," Michael stated, the words tasting like bile in his mouth, "selling people to the highest bidder." Axel maintained his alert posture. Without a doubt, his focus had heightened, his gaze moving from the auction room to a second door located at the far end of the VIP lounge. This second door opened into a hallway containing 6 rooms extending from it. Each room was compact, furnished with just a bed and minimal amenities. 5 remained unoccupied, but the 6th, "Call medical now," Michael instructed as he stepped into the last room. 3 people rested on thin mattresses, 2 young women and a boy who appeared to be no older than 14. All were unconscious, but alive, with intravenous lines connected to their arms from medical bags suspended on portable stands. "Sedated," Wright observed, verifying one woman's pulse. The pulse was strong and steady. They would remain under sedation until transport or... He looked back towards the auction room, his expression tightening, "until they were sold." Michael heard updates from the tactical teams through his radio, as they secured additional access points within the underground network. Early information showed that at least 2 suspects were caught attempting to escape via a service exit 4 blocks away. The medical team had just reached the 3 victims to provide care, when Axel abruptly stood up, fur bristling. This was not his warning for discovering evidence or even sensing a concealed individual. This served as the initial response, a consequence of an urgent danger. Prior to any action, Axel rapidly entered an unmapped tunnel, his speed requiring Michael to run to maintain visual contact. "Axel, wait," he called, drawing his weapon while running. Correct, potential suspects were in motion. The tunnel made a sharp turn, dividing into smaller passages that indicated recent activity. Michael listened for Mercer and Wright's footsteps as they followed, the sounds bouncing off the walls of the underground maze, but his attention stayed fixed on Axel's quickly fading figure in front. The shepherd moved through the twisting passages with steadfast confidence, making turns without pause. Ahead, Axel's barking resonated back to them, shifting from the controlled quiet of tracking to the sharp warning that indicated he had trapped his target. The passage ended with a rough wooden staircase ascending to a trapdoor. Axel stood at the foot of the stairs, intently observing the ceiling, barking with great force. The trapdoor above them moved slightly, revealing a narrow beam of faint light around its perimeter. Axel's barking grew louder. Rather than opening completely, the trapdoor shut abruptly, accompanied by the noise of a substantial object being pulled across its surface from above. The sound of hurried footsteps faded, accompanied by worried voices. "They're running." Michael began climbing the stairs, but Wright seized his arm. "Wait," he cautioned. "They could be setting a trap." Simultaneously, a quiet electronic beep came from above, followed by the noticeable hiss of gas being emitted. Back, Wright commanded. Everyone evacuate this area. Immediately. They retreated, just as a poisonous cloud started to leak through the spaces around the trapdoor. Axel guided them to a point 30 yards behind, where the air was still clean. CS gas likely, Wright stated. They're attempting to impede our progress. Jefferson's radio emitted static. The perimeter team was reporting activity at the Sentinel building. 2 suspects were observed leaving through the loading dock, proceeding east on foot. Michael, without awaiting verification, followed his partner, relying on Axel's judgment instead of conventional reasoning. The constricted passage appeared to twist unexpectedly, scarcely wide enough for the officers to pass through in sections, yet it kept a consistent diagonal path. Clever dog, Wright observed as they reached a broader passage that rose sharply upward. This has to be an original bootlegger route, not documented on any of the current maps. The passage ended at a corroded iron ladder, leading to a round hatch above. Michael ascended first, exerting force against the substantial cover. The mechanism resisted briefly before yielding with a groan of protest, exposing the interior of what appeared to be an abandoned mechanical room. "We're in the basement of Arlington Place," he reported back, recognizing the distinctive marble flooring visible through a partially open door that's directly across from the Sentinel building. They moved swiftly through the deserted building. Following Axel's silent guidance, the dog moved quickly from one puddle to the next. Michael observed water splashes mirroring the rhythm of running footsteps that had rippled the standing water. They arrived on Eastman Street just in time to witness 2 individuals sprint across the road, 2 blocks distant, and vanish into the entrance of a parking garage. "That's them," Michael exclaimed, starting to run with Axel leading the way. "Dispatch. Suspects are entering the Westover parking structure from the Eastman Street side." On the 3rd level, Axel abruptly decreased his speed, assuming a stalking stance. Just around the bend of the ramp, obscured somewhat by a support column, 2 men were working intensely at a laptop computer linked to a small portable device. Documents and hard drives were strewn about, and one was carefully inserting papers into a handheld shredder. "Police, don't move," Wright announced, appearing with his weapon raised. The younger of the 2 men quickly raised his hands, his face paling, while the older one moved to retrieve something from under his jacket. Axel responded immediately, swiftly moving across the space with intense focus. Before the man could finish his action, the shepherd secured the suspect's wrist with a firm bite, applying the necessary pressure to restrain him without causing significant harm. "Weapon," Michael alerted, observing the weapon that had fallen from the suspect's hand. Within seconds, both men were restrained face down on the concrete with their hands zip-tied behind them. The younger one had already begun speaking, his words pouring out in a frantic attempt to distance himself from his companion. "I just handle the tech," he insisted. "I set up the auction software, maintain the network. I never touched any of the merchandise. The people. It was all Kirsch's operation." The processing center located under Portland's historic district transformed into the city's most extensive crime scene in recent history. Over 3 days, teams of forensic specialists meticulously cataloged evidence, documented the facility's layout, and collected DNA samples, which ultimately aided in identifying numerous victims who had previously passed through the operation. "The level of sophistication was particularly unsettling," Wright noted during a short respite. "The majority of trafficking operations we disrupt are spontaneous and lack organization. This operation, however, functions similarly to a Fortune 500 company, exhibiting a corporate structure, quality control measures, and customer service protocols. The victims were regarded as commodities, possessing defined specifications and warranties. The 5 rescued victims were transferred to a specialized trauma center, where medical professionals experienced in trafficking cases are working to stabilize them physically while initiating the significantly longer process of psychological recovery." Wright told Michael that the youngest one was speaking. Just briefly, but it provided a timeline. She had been abducted 6 days ago in Seattle, survived the initial processing, but hadn't yet appeared in their auction catalog. The evidence, obtained from the suspect's laptop, proved to be even more valuable than expected. The documents held more than just customer details and financial data. They included communication records connecting the Portland operation to related sites in Vancouver, San Francisco, and extending eastward to Chicago. International task forces are already targeting 3 locations based on our intelligence, Wright stated. The plan involves coordinated raids and simultaneous action to avoid alerting any warning systems. Regarding the symbol discovered, the eye with the radiating lines, Wright confirmed that it represents their branding. This pattern has emerged in previous instances, though we didn't grasp its meaning at the time. We now recognize it as a marker for their high-end product range, a designation they use, not one I would apply. His reaction clearly showed his displeasure. Each line signifies a distinct service they provide. The largest operations possess the highest number of lines. The one discovered had 7, the greatest number we've ever recorded. 1 week later, Michael and Axel resumed their standard patrol duties. The officer's path intentionally steered clear of the historic district, where the investigation persisted behind police barriers and under the observation of federal agents. Chief Bennett had recognized their requirement to resume a regular routine following the heightened stress of the previous week. The morning presented crisp, clear conditions. Autumn sunlight illuminated Portland's trees with a golden hue as they patrolled their beat through Cathedral Park. Axel proceeded with his characteristic disciplined precision, yet Michael observed a slight alteration in his partner, possibly a greater alertness or a stronger trust in his own intuition. They halted close to the St. John's Bridge, its Gothic arches rising above the Willamette River. Michael released Axel's leash, granting him a short respite in the grass while remaining vigilant about their environment. "You change things, he said softly to the shepherd. It wasn't just concerning those 5 we located, but for hundreds more. They would never meet." Axel looked up at him with those intelligent amber eyes that sometimes seem to understand far more than any animal should. The case had already resulted in coordinated raids in 3 cities, the rescue of 17 additional victims, and the identification of over 40 individuals involved in the trafficking network. Yesterday, Wright had informed me that the International Task Force was planning operations in 6 countries, utilizing evidence obtained from the Portland facility. It was all a consequence of my intervention in that alley, Michael reflected, observing as Axel's ears rotated to follow a passing jogger. It stemmed from my recognizing something amiss and choosing to speak out. Continuing their patrol, Michael reflected on the remarkable connection that has grown between humans and dogs throughout millennia of evolution. What insights from the past understood the value in these animals, not solely as hunters or guardians, but as companions capable of noticing details that humans might overlook. Have you ever felt that an animal perceived something beyond your own awareness? How do dogs such as Axel seem to detect threats that humans miss? We welcome your stories and opinions in the comments below. Do you think the connection between canine officers and their handlers extends past training, potentially reaching a level beyond our complete understanding? Please share your thoughts with our community. If this story of Axel's extraordinary discovery moved you, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss another tale of remarkable canine heroes. Share this video with anyone who appreciates the incredible capabilities of working dogs and the special humans who partner with them. Check out our previous canine stories appearing on your screen now, and we'll see you again tomorrow at the same time with another brand new video.